Well, hello again, and welcome to our final installment on top games for the holiday season for 2018, 2019. And we are wrapping it up. We did our family casual games list, we did our light games list, we did our medium games list, and now we're going to do heavy games. Once again, these are titles that came out in 2018 to 2019, with the exception of any game that was so awesome and just had to be included that came out earlier. These are games that are heavy. These are games that you want to play with people who really, really know board games and really want to play board games and really feel like they can, pull it off. These are ones you go off to the beaten path. You don't throw these games out at the dinner table and say, "Okay, folks, that's time for 11 hours of creamy mathematical joy." So, without further ado, let's get into our top 10 heavy games of 2018, 2019, and beyond. First, Renegade. Renegade is a game that almost defies description by how I can hardly describe it. Imagine Tron and that whole I'm stuck in a machine and then mixing a little Netrunner where you're fighting against things in the machine, and you have Renegade. Renegade is definitely a labor of love by a guy who did a lot of walkthroughs that helped me in my life, and it came out with this game. It's very hard to describe. I would recommend going to Board Game Geek and checking it out. It isn't really difficult once you understand it, but it did take a long time for me to understand not only what to do, but the strategies of it. But it is a game like no other. And if you're interested in something crazy and wacky in a cyber digital realm kind of thing, do that. The next one is Cataclysm by GMT Games. This is the sandbox version of World War II. By sandbox, I mean you don't have these preset paths. You don't have and then the Germans did this and the Russians did that. How well could you do in the same thing? This is a jockeying for position before the war even starts. There's no even guarantee when combative powers will enter the war. There's a lot of fluidity that you get to kind of choose as you go about who does what. It's not a like pieces on a map. There are pieces and there is a map, but this isn't we're building a battle line up front and we're moving this infantry division and that mech division. No, it's much higher level, and it's designed to really just kind of give you the sense of like a bird's eye view of the era around World War II and what changes you can make that can make magnified impact later on in different ways. And it's a lot to pull off. It's a very big manual. There's a lot of things that are different about it. It isn't something that you would say, "Oh, I played this game, this war game, so clearly I'll get this." It's a different mind twist that works. And so Cataclysm, check it out. Escape Plan is not nearly that difficult per se, but it is a lot of moving pieces and it is a lot of puzzliness. It is the game where you're trying to basically escape the city with as much loot as possible while the cops kind of chase you. It isn't glib. It isn't this trite, Disney fairy tale kind of story, because you're trying to mess with other people. You're trying to make use of these hideouts and these getaways and not damage yourself and such. So it's good. It's meaty. And it's probably pretty pricey, but you definitely get your money's worth, in my opinion, from the play that I've got from it. Space Core came out last year about Christmas. As a matter of fact, I got it right before Christmas. I almost didn't think I would. Space Core is a single-player to four-player game based on the Space Core universe. You are spreading out in three phases. You've got your around Earth, and then you out to the planets, and you go out to this distant galaxy. Some people don't like it. They think that it's kind of a little bit samey after a while. I continue to enjoy it. I think that it's not far-fetched. It's not this sort of fantasy Star Trek, okay. Not making fun of Star Trek, people. Star Wars kind of like, here's out there stuff. It's more of sort of a plausibility level that says, hey, we could go out here, we could do this. Not totally accurate, but anyway, Space Core, very fluid, especially solo, so check that one out. Teotihuacan, or however you pronounce it, is another game that has a bunch of just zads, scads, and zounds of different icons and pieces and plates and setting up and everything. It's one of those things where you make one little decision and it jostles about 4 or 5 different pieces around the board to change their state, and then you're off and running again. Not for the faint of heart, but definitely clever. I got it and Coimbra at the same time. I ended up playing a little more at Coimbra just because of the smoothness of it, but Teotihuacan is starkly cool, starkly different. If you're up in understanding, there's a lot of iconography, there's a lot of details, and a lot of little pulleys that make big gears turn in the game. Fields of Fire 2 is a follow-up to Fields of Fire 1. I have barely scratched. Scratching the surface is almost like overstating how I feel about this game. It is divine in actually really simulating combat at a squad level, tactical level, like right down at the ground level. Everything, nuances and pieces, like, how you communicate. It's just not like, oh, I'll make this guy go here. No. Do you have a line of communication? Do you have phone lines? Do you have flares? Whatever. Oh, here's some fire, incoming fire and outgoing fire. It is unconventional and it is glorious. It's the one game that uses like cards, but it uses them for like 90 different things, overstating again. Definitely, if you wanted to know, this is a game you could dive into and make sort of a hobby all its own. Take away board gaming, you could make this into a hobby all its own. It is that chock full of potential. Gandhi is the latest coin game, and Gandhi is basically, India during the era of Gandhi. And if you're not interested in coin games, this won't change your mind. If you do like coin games, or you want something that's a little bit kind of middle of the road, not too difficult, not too light, Gandhi is the thing for you. Underwater Cities is another game that came out of the blue. Now, I played, I think Pulsar 2049, or one of the ones from the designer beforehand, and I'm like, it was okay, but it wasn't great. Underwater Cities is great because it actually gives you a lot of things to do and a lot of ways to kind of like reconfigure assets to do close to what you want to do in building this underwater city structure. It's a longer game than it might look, but it's also a fascinating game with a really compelling solo play. It's not just simple, like, do better than you did last time. The Last 100 Yards is a brand new game from GMT Games that basically takes the rules for how you usually handle moving around in a tactical way and just turns them on their heads. Fields of Fire just goes off to all like way away and says, imagine you were actually in this situation and you had to follow protocol. 100 Yards says, hey, imagine if the terrain you were on really did kind of act like the terrain you were on. It wasn't like, oh, you're 3 hexes away. You have line of sight from this. No, it's got contour maps. It's got all these different rules. It is very different. Very different. I think that's one of the hurdles, is that a lot of people have to just like shut off how they play everything else and just focus on how it's described. I'm still learning it. I'm still enjoying it, but I still, again, haven't scratched the surface on all that it can do. But The Last 100 Yards is definitely a game worth checking out for people who want a meaty challenge. Blackout Hong Kong is not that incredibly difficult, but it is a little bit of it does have enough complexity. I think it fit into heavy games. I didn't like this. I didn't think I would like this as much as Great Western Trail and some of the other stuff from this designer, but yet I still keep coming back to it, probably because it's I don't know. Like, there's no reason I like it better than some of his other stuff that I consider greater as far as score. I just like it, and I think it's worthy. Red Storm Air War over Central Germany is it's a game of, imagine if in 1987 there was really a war over Central Germany between the Allies and the Germans, the Warsaw Pact and NATO. And nuance-wise, there's a lot of details. It's not complicated in structurally in what you do. There's just a ton of details. Air war, you've got your ground installations, you've got your initiatives, you've got your different packages you're sending out, you got your different mission types. Again, it's a meaty experience in a box that I'm slowly learning as well. I have different avenues of learning. And finally, if you have a chance to play it, in the same way that Tank Duel. Tank Duel almost was the medium game because it really isn't as complicated. It's way less complicated than Last 100 Yards, Fields of Fire, and Red Storm. But it was complicated enough, as I was explaining it, that it wasn't quite Ancient Civilizations, the Inner Sea, which made the medium game list. But Tank Duel is an incredibly fun, incredibly compelling tank game that doesn't have any terrain or any spatial representation. It's all tank duels in your mind with your tank duels on this player board of showing you your tanks. So another one that just came out. This was very recent, as in a month ago it came out. So that's it. Those are the games that I think are high points for people who are looking for interesting things this holiday season. I wish you all well. I look forward to talking to you more in the coming weeks. Take care, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.